From the AM/FM 24/7 radio network, ClearPoint Financial Solutions presents the Small Business Administration Award-winning School for Startups Radio, where we talk all things small business and entrepreneurship. Now, here's your host, the guy that believes that anyone can be an entrepreneur, because entrepreneurship is not about creativity, risk, or passion, Jim Beach.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another exciting edition of School for Startups Radio, where we promise two things and two things only. Number one, to get you motivated to get off the sofa, go out there and start a business. And number two, to give you the tips, the tricks, the techniques to be successful when you go out there and start. You know, not every guest will make sense to you, but if you look at the big montage, the big picture, you will see that we are always talking about several consistent themes. Risk is bad. We'll do anything to diversify risk, to offset the risk to other people, to reduce the cost of starting our business, to bootstrap so that we don't lose our house, right? We want to start our businesses with as little risk, especially financial risk, as possible. Number two, we don't really care about creativity. We're out there copy borrowing and stealing other people's ideas. We don't give you any extra bonus points for being creative. As a matter of fact, it can be a bad thing for your business. We just want you to be really good at executing, and we reserve passion for the church, the synagogue, the mosque, and occasionally the living room, if you know what I mean. We just want to go out there and have a business that we really, really, really like, and reserve passion for the family and the other things that are more important than the material things that we do in our life. It's awesome when we love a business, and that is certainly something that we can achieve, but it's not necessarily always going to happen. And remember that all-important corridor principle, that sometimes you stumble across what you love on the second or third business, and that wouldn't have happened if you hadn't started walking down that corridor and were exposed to the things that happen along the way. Some great things to keep in mind. We got a fantastic show for you today. First up, we have Frank Cottle. He is the founder of Alliance Business Center. They have hundreds of co-working spaces, of temporary office space all around the world. It's an amazing story how he started that from scratch, how he figured out the space was going to be so very attractive, and what he has done there. And it fits in with our overall philosophy of low risk. And we will talk about that, especially how venture capitalists love it when you're using temp space to save on that long-term lease. It just makes so much sense. And then after that, we're going to have a young millennial I'm very impressed with. Case Kenny is his name. He is one of the founders of Trep Media Group. They have several really cool millennially focused. Is that a word, millennially? I don't know. Anyway, they have several properties, magazines, podcasts, things like that, focused on millennials and what they are doing to go out there and make that difference in society. As a matter of fact, we have tons of millennial guests coming up here in the next week or so. You know, I always rag on the millennials, right? That's one of the consistent themes here on the show. But on the other hand, I keep meeting really impressive ones that are telling some great stories. And Case today is like that. Tomorrow, I have a young African-American lady who started a business when she was 9 and is now 16 and has been all over the place on the Today Show and USA Today. An amazing story. And then after that, I have a 16-year-old. I think he's now 18. When he was 16, he started a business, did the research in chemical engineering to create a product that is water repellent, and everything you pour on it just beads up and floats right away. So put it on shoes and your shoes won't get damaged from muddy water and stuff like that. It's an amazing story. Got a bunch of these millennials coming up here in the next week or so. You will not want to miss it. So anyway, thank you so much for being with us, and we will be right back with Frank Cottle.
I'm Robin Johnson, and Jim asked me to share with you about my Unstoppable Amazon Academy, which which is over 100 pages of videos, tutorials, and tools for your Amazon business. We cover everything from sourcing to accounting and how to use the report Amazon gives you to be more profitable. The Academy is great for new sellers and seasoned pros looking to crack that $50,000 a month mark. You can find out more at AmazonStartupSchool.com and use the promo code 14days, 14 DAYS, all capitals, to get a 14-day free trial.
And welcome back to the show again. Thank you so much for being with us today. I'm very excited to introduce you to my first guest. His name is Frank Cottle. He is the chairman and founder of Alliance Business Centers. Now, you know how much I hate risk, and one of the things that you can do that's probably the riskiest is get into a long-term, expensive lease. And the Alliance Business Centers help you avoid just that. They have over 650 locations in 42 countries around the world, and they provide virtual office space, business centers, all of the facilities and things that you would need to run your business. And I just think that this is so vital for you to reduce your cost, as I've said. And so I'm excited for you to hear Frank's story. He started off with a company called Deloitte. You've probably heard of them. And before that, he had my absolute dream job. If I could do anything in the world that I'm not doing now, it would be selling big yachts. And he did that back in the 70s and early 80s. Frank, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Well, thank you very much, Jim. It's a pleasure to be here, and lovely here in Newport Beach in Southern California today.
Well, we are jealous of the good weather you're having there. And I don't know why in the world a man would leave yacht sales. I mean, that to me is the dream profession. You know, if I get really, really, really rich, I'm going to go buy myself a yacht one day. So sounds like you've had a fascinating career.
Well, if you get really, really, really rich, I'm going to encourage you, because you're risk aversive, to charter instead of buy. How's that?
Well, you are exactly right. Yes, I can charter it for 2 weeks a year and spend, what, $100,000 a week and not have all of those big problems, right?
That is absolutely right. And, you know, it's funny. You asked a question about why would anybody ever leave that business? And I think because this program is about entrepreneurs, I'll make a quick reference. I'd been in that business and quite successful. We built the largest yacht brokerage in the world during the 70s. So it was quite a nice enterprise. We had offices here in Newport Beach, in Fort Lauderdale, in New York, and in Cannes over in southern France. And even though we were successful, I was sitting in my office one day listening to one of the junior brokers. And candidly, he was making kind of a whiny presentation, and it just bothered me. And in listening to that, I came to the conclusion, I'll never be an owner so long as I'm a broker. And from that point forward, the entrepreneurial spirit to own and to create and to build just started driving everything. And so I had to sell my interest in the firm and move on.
Well, I love that attitude, and it's so refreshing. And you're 100% right. The path to success, to great wealth, or even small wealth, you know, being worth $2 million and making $200,000 today, I think your chances of doing that are greatest by being an entrepreneur. And that's why I love your story. Tell us about the Alliance Business Centers Network, please.
Well, Alliance Business Centers was built from 1980 through and where we operated our own centers through the 2001. So during that time period, we built a lot of buildings across the southwestern U.S., plugged business centers into them, and we built quite a large portfolio of business centers across all of North America, myself and a variety of partners. But at the last part of that period, again, sort of an epiphany jumped up, and we made the decision, and it goes with your risk aversion theory, that we would rather own the customer than own the center. So we sold all of our centers and developed a broader base by creating a marketing network that runs very much like Best Western Hotels, where independent operators are members inside of our Alliance network structure. And then created a technology that looks a lot like a miniature version of Expedia, But instead of selling hotel rooms, we sold offices, virtual offices, telephony services, meeting room services, etc., where we owned the customer. And just like Expedia owns your relationship if you book through them, not the hotel that you happen to book at. And our theory there was in creating better corporate value. Much rather have a software company than a company that leases and releases to others. On the one hand. On the other hand, again, it was a risk aversion. I didn't like long-term debt and a lease, whether it's a large company like ours or a small entrepreneurial company. A lease is debt. It shows on your balance sheet, and you got to pay it. I didn't like long-term debt against short-term income. I didn't think those variables were matching up, especially in the cyclicality of the global market. As a result of which we decided to balance our risk structure by owning the customer and hiring our own member centers on a discount basis to service our customers for us. So it's a simple story. It took about 37 years to build the company, so it wasn't a quick story. But today we are the largest provider of this type of service on a global basis, and enjoy quite a leadership position within the industry.
Frank, I have to ask a stupid question because I am, quite honestly, a stupid man. What is the difference between a business center, a member center, and a virtual office? Explain this to me. I understand if a company rents a floor of an office building and then they sublease me 2 or 3 rooms. Is that a business center? Help me understand this industry better.
Yes, that would be a business center, and a virtual office would be a product offered by that center. But let me back up a little bit and kind of define really who our industry is. We are the serviced office industry. And the serviced office industry is comprised of all providers that combine people, place, and technology into a single bundled service, and then utilize a short, highly flexible service agreement to deliver that bundle rather than a long-term lease or an employment agreement. So the 3 things that build our industry are people, place, and technology in a bundled service delivered with a highly flexible agreement. And within our industry, just kind of like within the automotive industry, within our industry, we have different sectors. The automotive industry has sports cars and SUVs and luxury cars. Well, we have business centers and co-working centers and incubators and accelerators that each have a different brand promise. Just like a luxury car promises its user a certain amenities, you might say. Well, a business center promises people, place, and technology combined with professional image and services. A co-working center, same people, place, and technology, maybe a few different ratios, but the same basic 3 components, combined with the brand promise of business growth of its customers, business growth with a collaborative community. An incubator might add mentoring to either of those 2. An accelerator might add access to capital to an incubator. So that's our industry, and globally there are about 23,000 such facilities worldwide, and our industry is growing really very rapidly right now due to major trends in shifts in employment practices, contracting taking over in that regard, and technology obviously is a huge boost. So our industry right now is growing about 10, 12% per year globally, and in some markets as much as 15% a year, which is actually faster than the PC industry was growing at the height of the dot-com boom.
Wow, that's a statistic I had never heard before. All right, so when I join the network, do I have access to offices anywhere in the world? I could walk into your new Karachi office and get a desk, or do I only have access to my home office here really close to my house? Or is it a combination of those, or do I pick and explain that piece to me?
It's highly flexible. So we tailor all of our services around the individual needs of our clients. A client might need a permanent suite of offices for a team in their home city, a network of sales or distribution offices spread across a variety of other cities, and then a virtual office or multiple virtual offices on a broader platform for customer service purposes. And then they might just need meeting rooms from time to time as their teams travel around. And so it's really very, very flexible. So the answer to your question really is all of the above. And each client has different requirements, and each client shouldn't be tried to be put into a box that says, here's our product, here's what you have to do. It's really a matter of meeting the needs of companies that are growing. And as you say, reducing their risk by creating a highly flexible, low-cost structure.
All right, so let's go to the absolute bottom price. If I needed a room that I want to set aside, I want to be able to lock it so I can keep my files in there, but I just need a 10 by 10 office space a couple of miles from my house, what is that going to cost me on a monthly or an annual basis?
Well, office space, all real estate for that matter, is tied to the cost of the dirt underneath the building.
Sure. Beverly Hills is more expensive than Buffalo.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was just going to say London is more expensive than New York, but it's the same issue there. So there's a wide swing, but generally you can say that on average in North America, a single workstation office, such as you described, would be in the $400 to $700 range. Which would include all the clerical, secretarial, administrative, reception support, public areas, reception rooms, conference rooms, mail room, copier rooms, facility, lounge, kitchen, as well as the private office within that price. So if you think of what would it cost you to rent conventional space, disregarding the term of lease, you would, in order to replicate the services that you have, you couldn't have a 10 by 10 or a 10 by 15 office. You'd have to have a reception area, have a meeting rooms, have a little break area, a place where you had coffee, a place to sort mail and do photocopies, as well as hire the staff to do that. And just a receptionist or any support, administrative support, would cost you 3 to 4 times the cost of the office in our model.
We are speaking with Frank Cottle, the founder and chairman of Alliance Business Centers. Again, they have almost 700 offices around the world in over 40 countries. Frank, I want to tell you a story that happened to me just this week, and it impacts on your industry. I was meeting with a venture capitalist. He was going through our presentation. We're trying to raise some money for a business startup. And at the very end, he looked at us and said, well, what about office space? And we said, we're not going to make a commitment to that right now. We plan on getting temporary space and having the smallest amount that we need, and we'll grow as we need it. And he looked at us and said, very smart, very smart. We got the blessing from the venture capitalist by using something like your services. The venture capitalist thought that we were smart by saving money. We weren't going to waste a bunch of his money on some office space. It really speaks to how the entire world is changing. I think 10 years ago, a venture capitalist would have expected us to have expensive space with our logo everywhere. But your business, your opportunity just makes us look smart, doesn't it? Do you hear stories like that all the time?
Well, we do. And as a matter of fact, venture capital organizations and private equity firms are one of our largest a customer base or customer channels, I should say. We work very actively directly with the VC firms, and we analyzing their portfolios and helping them to reduce their investment costs in their invested companies. And what we'll find is that we might have an investment group in a particular city or marketplace that has 40 or 50 portfolio companies. Maybe a third or a half of which are in startup or beginning early stages. And as a result of that, they come to us and help have us help them work through the officing requirements of that company, because more than the cost, they don't want the entrepreneur's thought processes or time diluted, hiring unnecessary people and managing people when they should be managing ideas. They don't want them committing capital to worrying about buying systems or equipment when they should be focused on marketing. So we work very actively with these groups on a direct basis, and they are one of our major channels in business globally, not just locally, but globally.
Interesting. I'm surprised to hear that. I had no idea about that, but it makes a lot of sense, especially even more than the cost reduction, keeping the entrepreneur focused on what they're supposed to be doing, which is building and marketing a product. So it makes a ton of sense. Frank, I want to shift gears a little bit now. We understand your business really well, I think. How did you get this very first idea? So you were doing other things. I think you were working with Deloitte when you started this business, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong, but how did you get the idea to start this? How did you start location number 1 before you sold off all of the centers? Talk to me about your earliest days, leaving the boat rental industry, charter industry, moving into this space.
Well, boy, you're asking me to reach way back, Jim. I think
you're not that old, Frank.
I think that when I first started, I had and was in the yachting industry. I'd been lucky in that we'd been lucky as a company and successful, and I had invested in quite a bit of residential income property, apartment buildings, and decided that business wasn't right for me. It's too management intense for the return. And so I wanted to move over to commercial property and investing. And in doing so, decided that I really wanted to invest in land. I come from a ranching and farming family for many, many generations here in California. And, land is wonderful. So we wanted to buy land in the path of progress, sit on it. And there's a number of ways to do that, but we decided to go into high quality, pre-designed major commercial developments. So we determined that the smallest amount of bricks and mortar we could invest in that would tie up the biggest piece of land in the path of progress was these funny little things in the late 70s and early 80s called executive suites. So we thought, well, that's the concept for us. It's a clean business. It's a technology-driven business. Even then we understood that. It's a service business, and we liked that because we could create and add a lot of extra value and still save the client a substantial amount of money. So we built a variety of buildings across the southwestern U.S., put them into this model, and just learned how to run the business. It was a very classic entrepreneurial move. We got lucky with timing and expanded from there.
Interesting word choice, lucky. I'm not sure I believe in much entrepreneurial luck, Frank. It's about just like that duck. You've seen the picture of the duck who's calm above the water and paddling like hell underneath. Do you really believe in luck, or are you just being really polite and humble?
Well, I really do believe in luck. I think that if you're prepared, you're a little luckier than most. But I really do think, you can start a company with a brilliant idea at the wrong time. And you can be lucky, and your idea and the timing of the economy or the fate trends that are changing with an industry, technology in our case, can blend in with what you're doing and act as a natural accelerator. So no matter how hard you look for those things, and maybe it's the old farmer in family in me, sometimes you're unlucky and it doesn't rain, and sometimes you're lucky and it does. And I think the key is planning to be able to sustain your business through a variety of cycles. That's where experience blends with luck and starts to change more into your model than the pure luck that I was referencing in mine.
Frank, if an 18-year-old child of yours came to you and said, "Dad, I want to be an entrepreneur," what is the single most important piece of advice you would give them? And also, what is the single most important thing you would tell them to avoid?
Boy, ugh. I would just say do something you love. Truly, if you can create something built on your love of what you're doing, no matter what you do, you'll do a much better job. And so I would just say fall in love with what you're doing and make sure that you're true and support that love. I've been in this business now for 37 years, and I love it. Every day I get up, I'm excited to begin my day. People speak of retirement, and I have peers that are retiring and selling their businesses. And I couldn't even imagine retiring just because I enjoy what I'm doing so much. And that comes from building friendships. And no one can have too many friends in the world. And if you love what you're doing, you'll spread that enjoyment and you'll make friends all over the world. And that's where I think I've been blessed. In terms of what to avoid, I don't know, maybe overcommitment, recognizing what you really can do and then making sure you have the resources to do it. So many people have wonderful ideas, but they don't ensure that they have the resources with which to execute them. So they end up frustrated, oftentimes failing, and then doing something they don't love. So just recognizing what you really can accomplish, not limiting yourself, because your only limitation is based on the resources you can garner in order to accomplish your dream. And just making sure that you have the right resources.
Great advice. Frank, the website is abc.com, Alliance Business Centers Network.com, ABCN. Maybe I left out the N there. ABCN.com. How else would you like us to learn more about you, about the company, follow you online, that kind of thing, please?
I would say there are two other websites that are important. One would be alliancevirtualoffices.com. And the other would be allwork.space. Allworkspace is the service office industry's largest news and information publication, and it covers everything that's going on all over the world in our industry. It's a publication that we